Otomo Yoshiaki knew how to drive a hard bargain. The Europeans could be convinced to allow him to keep one of their ocean-going ships in exchange for a charitable supply of well-exercised or well-educated men with a crushed spirit. His soldiers could be convinced to go without supplies or pay as he made forced marches against his enemies, in exchange for promises of land, glory, and the blessings of a new, mysterious heavenly power. And his lords could be convinced to ignore the ridicule and scorn of all Japan in exchange for the riches acquired through the previously mentioned bargains. His son Yoshishige, sent out on his first mission for the clan, was proving quite economic too. Lord Shimazu, I came as soon as I heard. This is dire news. Dire does not describe it. You knew of their strength, didn't you? Not at all, Lord. I have never met a servant of the Shiga, in fact. They were your vassal. How do I know you didn't supply the very troops that killed my men? Lord, please. This has been an emotional time. Look, we shall keep the siege in place while you return home to acquire more troops. Enough of your stupidity, boy! I will get to the bottom of this conspiracy. There is no such thing, really. Oh well, goodbye, Lord. I suppose we'll just take the castle for ourselves, then? Hello and welcome back to Barbarian Masters, where we're still in that battle with our vassal, the Shiga clan, or at least what remains of them. We're storming this castle after the Shimazu lost almost their whole army trying to take it, and what they have left they're keeping well back. They are not going to go in for any last-ditch assault on this castle when this is technically our battle, so all of my Ashigaru will have to do it instead. And unfortunately I don't have any good footage of this fighting since the replay corrupted, as I mentioned last time, but essentially what happened is we had a lot of trouble just defeating the last few soldiers because what was left over was mostly samurai. And these Onobushi archers causing us a lot of trouble as well. I was trying to take them down with my own archers and it wasn't doing much thanks to the enemy's high armor. So it did come down to a grind, in some cases a grind against one guy that would just last forever because our Ashigaru don't have much chance against them. But overall our numbers are overwhelming, so we are going to be able to win this eventually, just with a little bit higher cost than I would have liked. I came in to capture the Tendou, but unfortunately one soldier fighting on there right to the very end stopped me from doing so. So we did kill the enemy down to the last man in order to win this battle. Or it might have actually been a woman in this particular case. It's a close victory for us. Now the closeness, of course, doesn't necessarily come from our own losses, more so the losses on the Shimazu side. If we look at the results, we almost lost half of our men, but our men were mostly from the Shimazu clan, and you can see that they took huge damage. Many elite and veteran units were defeated in the Shimazu army, and that is absolutely perfect because, of course, while they are our allies, they're also going to be our biggest rival here on the island. So that's some very valuable military stock they have just lost entirely to our gain. Now they won't be taking that territory from the Shiga, and we'll get that second castle in southern Bungo secured for us. The Shimazu army will just have to march right back home, having lost quite a lot and gained nothing. Overall, a perfect little move from Yoshishige there. We've also, in taking this castle, gained access to some new units. We can now recruit the tier above samurai, elite samurai units, which is another thing added in by the Master of Strategy mod. It's very expensive, but once you have them, their upkeep isn't too bad. So it's a worthy investment, although we're far away from being able to afford such expensive units, considering that right now we're still struggling to get our financial situation back on its feet. And not helping that are the Waco Pirates. The Waco Pirates are a hostile navy that attacks everyone that spawns every few turns, and if it hasn't been defeated when it comes time to spawn again, it just adds units to the existing fleet, I believe, or two fleets appear and they combine. So that's going to be a big problem for us because their spawn point is right next to where our trade nodes are. So we're going to have to deal with them. In this case, I decided to auto-resolve because the enemy ships are all better than ours, and I thought it was strange that the balance bar looked even. I would take that, especially because the difficulty level would likely mean we lost individual fights in the naval battle and would end up losing quite badly. So fortunately we won. We did lose a few ships, but I was very happy to pay that price because I thought we would lose even more in an actual engagement. So anyway, we can see we've now got public order problems here in the region that it's calling Takeda. So this second castle in southern Bungo effectively acts like its own region, and I think in effect it is its own region in every respect but for getting a region marker on the map. I don't know exactly what that means or how to regard it, but we are going to effectively treat it as its own region, even though it looks like it's part of southern Bungo at the very least. So now we're going to switch focus back to our main force, which has been sailing down the western coast of Kyushu to exploit something I noticed in the previous episode, and that is this rebellion that has occurred down in the capital of the Shimazu clan. So we can now move into Satsuma province and potentially just take it from our rival, further weakening them. That would be great. Uno's going to take the fleet back north to start hunting down the pirates, and the rest of the army will have to deal with the rebels, who have already done a number on the province by the looks of things. It's in very bad condition. Meanwhile, I've got a priest up north trying to convert people in southern Higo over so that they might rebel, so I can do the same thing there, because that would be ideal. It is true, all true. All things are holy in this world, and all things, as you will all agree, are created. They have an origin. Why would the world itself be any different? Just as we can create small things like these houses, powers greater than us can create large things like the land, the sky, and our ancestors. Barbarian priest, you are wrong. I will tell you why. You say that the spirit which created all things is most proud of us, of people, and that it loves us deeply. With that in mind, consider the truth that we Japanese have known to be true beyond the memory of any. All that begins must end. We can see that to be true of all things. If the world, the sky, the heavens are no different to common things, as you say, then we must take it that the world is doomed to end. Would a loving father not wish his child a life without end if it were at all possible? And if it were possible, it would surely be in the power of the entity the barbarian describes. It is rather clearer to realize that while water comes and goes from rivers, the river itself remains. While clouds are born and die before our eyes, the sky remains. There are things, then, that cannot be created or uncreated. They are instead the canvas of creation itself. I don't think you understand. Let me tell you of the devil and the foul concepts such as these he spreads. The pirates came back for round 2. It was another balanced engagement with an equal number of ships, and once again, even though the Waco were quite damaged already, I still didn't think our trade ships had any chance. They managed to win at the sacrifice of yet more ships, so our trade fleet there is now very damaged. We can start putting ships together to go and reinforce it pretty easily because the port's right next to it. Plus, Uno's going to come in to finish the job when it comes to the pirates. His fleet will have no problem annihilating them. The Black Ship, as someone mentioned in the comments of a previous episode, does take disproportionately high damage from auto-resolves, which is why its crew seems to be so low right now. And it's extremely expensive to recrew it, so I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. So back to Yoshiaki, we're going to go and besiege the rebels inside Satsuma. Their army's pretty decent actually. It's better than most of the armies we fought in this campaign. It doesn't have any drafted troops, all regulars or samurai, including some special troops like firebomb throwers. So that's going to be interesting to fight. In South Higo, the decline of their public order is continuing nicely, and I'm showing here that I can just start a rebellion whenever I want. If I put money in, you get a probability of a rebellion happening regardless of the public order. But I'm not going to do that right now because firstly we need the money for other things, and starting a rebellion now isn't actually what we want. We need to deal with these rebels first to free up our forces and then start undermining the next possible target. Now these rebels are going to make it fast for us because they're sallying out. We're going to face them in a field battle, which is very welcome. The battlefield we get is pretty good. Not only do we start on a hill with trees on it, so most of our troops are hidden, but we have the sea to our back and a river on our left flank, meaning this position is extremely strong and the enemy don't necessarily know it because so much of our army is hidden. They're going to have to just advance up and see what they can do. I imagine they don't want to let all the effort they made getting rid of the Shimazu in this region be put to waste by having another samurai clan show up to take over, so they think it's worth having a go at this formation. They're going to discover it's going to be quite hard, and this leading unit's going to learn it the most because we open up on them with all of our ranged units, and our matchlocks are now very high level. They shoot quickly and they shoot accurately, and this unit is just decimated by that matchlock fire combined with archery from our Boa Shigaru as well. So that's one fewer unit to deal with. In come the rest. It's just going to be a straight brawl on the front line. I'm forming a bow formation because my line's longer than theirs, so that should allow me to outflank them in some places. The main threat I was worried about coming from their army was their heavy cavalry, their Yari Ki. They were very nice to me in that they just advanced up the centre, which is the worst thing they could have done, for a couple of reasons as you can see. Not only were they fighting my spears, but the enemy's firebomb throwers start throwing grenades into the melee, killing everyone. And this part of the melee is not only where their heavy cavalry are, but their heavy samurai, their guard unit, which is a super heavy anti-cav unit, I think. That probably would have done fine against my Ashigaru too. So all of those guys just getting blown to pieces, courtesy of the enemy. Thank you very much. On the left flank, we're starting to win against this unit in a one-on-one just because our guys are more experienced. Plus, the enemy's morale is low. They don't have a general, which is going to keep their morale low for the whole battle, making it easy for us to rout them. And there's an example. After that devastating firebomb attack, all of the heavy samurai and cavalry just get out of there and start fleeing. And as they do, they meet our light cavalry coming in for a rear attack. At just that moment, they're trapped, and it turns their rout into a shatter. And this battle is going to end immediately because of that. Just a few bow samurai left fighting at the end, but they were just overwhelmed by everything stomping down on them, and the rebel army has just been annihilated in the blink of an eye. A decisive victory for Yoshiaki, and one that we didn't have to work very hard for. The enemy doing quite a lot to force themselves to lose in this fight, including sallying out to fight us at all. They could have stayed in the heavy fortifications of Satsuma, although we'll see in a minute that they might have had a reason to sally. The results there absolutely fine. Didn't even get a unit down into the yellow, despite the fact that grenades were blowing up our men as well as the enemies. It seems to have just not done all that much to us overall, so we are fine. So we'll start the next turn. I did have this trade ship here sail right up to the very end of Japan because I thought there was a trade node at the far end, but it wasn't there. Maybe Master of Strategy removes it. So it's going to make its way back, and we are going to take Satsuma right now. The balance bar super far in our favour. The fortifications have the gates open, which gives you a better chance in a siege assault, and we would probably win even without that advantage. So we'll take it. Losses very minor in comparison to the enemy, and in we go. Public order is very low, and we can see now that the fort is almost entirely wrecked. It barely has a fortress at all. This is a high level castle building, which means it's very expensive to repair, which means we can't repair it, and public order is going to be a big problem because of this. Even with our gigantic army inside garrisoning it, the people aren't going to be very happy here. We can try exempting them from tax in the next turn to see if that has any effect, but right now we just can't afford to sort this place out. Is there proof? The missing people is the proof. The sail ships that come and go in the night is the proof. What if the ransom brokers merely moved them elsewhere? Our own fleet takes oarsmen from all over. If that were true, what would the barbarians want with us? They're taking them somewhere, and some of them aren't even indentured. They kidnap women from the city, and no one could say a thing because Lord Shimazu decreed they were immune. That is why I funded the rebels. Do you wish to live after this? It's preferable. Tell my lord this story. When he hears it, he will most likely send you to meet the barbarians yourself. That is his sense of humor. You might live, and you might find out the truth of it all for yourself. I will do that, my lord. Excuse me. Sounds like Yoshiaki's not the only one making deals. Whatever the foreigner's plan is, it's working. The Shimazu, despite the fact that I awkwardly occupy their capital right now, offer me a military alliance. This wouldn't be the worst of ideas, since it just guarantees they're not going to turn against us. They do have lots of military strength they could use to stab us in various points, but they were very rude about it and said that we were inferior in the negotiation, so we're just going to turn them down as a result. We do not want to validate their claims that it's such an honor to be an ally with them. Now, I got enough money to repair up the castle at Satsuma, and that will just about allow us to avoid a rebellion here. So that is perfect, and we still have to save up quite a lot to repair the rest of the buildings, but that's far less important. Our progress in South Higo has been halted by the fact that Shimazu have started hiring troops there to keep public order, so while we are sapping money from the Shimazu in this fashion, our rebellion isn't going to happen, if they keep doing that at least. I'm going to destroy the powder maker building there at Satsuma because we don't really need to make things like firebomb throwers and mangonels, and we'll put a church there instead to help spread Christianity in the southern part of the island. Now, I've sent the fleet to scout Tanegashima and see what sort of military forces they have. The answer is mostly just drafted troops. The reason for this is that, as I've mentioned a couple of times, they control a trade node, and we'll have to be at war with them to take that trade node back, and we certainly want to do that. We could use the income, and we know that Tanegashima's naval strength is very low. If we can beat them on the seas, we can actually just trap them on their island and make a war with them very safe, because they won't be able to act against us, just like our war with Uichi over on the mainland right now. So with that in mind, I'm going to start moving my fleet into position. Now, back to the rebelling situation in South Higo. I checked this Incite Revolt thing, and one of the interesting things about the Incite Revolt mechanic is that it actually becomes less likely to succeed the more Christian the province is. I'm not completely sure why that is. I guess it's to counterbalance the fact the rebellion is bigger if the Christian population is bigger, so it reduces the probability of you getting it, but it also makes the probability of you getting a small rebellion 0, which I don't completely understand. But anyway, to try and use this to our advantage, I'm going to now go and send the priest towards a place with no Christianity in it to see if we can make a rebellion there. We're now in the next turn, and the Tanegashima tiny fleet there has followed my fleet. It seems they suspect that something's about to happen on the sea, and they are entirely correct. We can come down here to see them in the diplomacy menu and confirm that they have no ties to anyone, making them very vulnerable. We can declare war on them without any penalties. No allies going to come into this one. So that's all well and good. The war just starts, no hassle. The first thing we'll do is just look at the fleet that was following us, and they very wisely run away there. The thing about that fleet, though, is I did want to take it out, because having any ships for the Tanegashima is a potential risk, because even one ship is enough to bring their army over to Kyushu. So luckily I'd left some ships down near Tanegashima ready to blockade their port, but instead they can come up here and just take out the ships. That's just as good. That leaves them with only one trade ship on the trade node, and I don't think the AI uses trade ships to transport troops around. It'll always just try and get onto a node. So we can just make that ship run away. That will mean the node is freed up for us. We're probably not going to get to fight that ship because it'll never want to engage our fleet, but that doesn't matter. We can now achieve our war objective. We'll put this pre-prepared trade ship on the node for ourselves. Now it is ours. We'll start gaining some income, and we'll get a load more trade ships together to add more value to that node. Very good. That was easier than I thought. A refreshing change of pace. The acquisition of ports near Kagoshima and the new sources of trade goods focused there has made the journey for the Europeans a little shorter and a lot safer. With no need for guidance or escort, we have been freed to conduct genuine military operations, all above board. For the first time, we are declaring war without any cause but greed, and yet, of all our actions, this one has drawn the least scorn from the other lords, if any. They sympathize. They would have done the same. Although they won't admit it, I suspect the same is true of dealing with the Nanban, especially now that the echoes of our matchlocks have reached the furthest corners of the land. Rumour has it that the Shimazu were close to giving in, and the missionaries turned spies have probably met with most of the daimyo. I understand that exclusive access was part of Lord Otomo's pact, but then I also understand that barbarians are not known for keeping to pacts. Since we've now achieved our objective from the war against Tanegashima, I thought we may just be able to get peace with them, but they weren't interested. It seems we'll have to either hold out or actually conquer them to get rid of the war itself. Now, my missionary has arrived to try and incite a revolt in a less Christian province of Shimazu, and this actually works. I was willing to spend the money because the chance was higher, and it did come through. At first I couldn't actually see the rebels. I moved my shinobi down to take a look around, and I still couldn't see them, and this is just because I'm blind. They are there on the screen in the bottom right. Eventually I noticed them. Let's take a look at what they've got. A couple of Yari cavalry units, that's pretty powerful, and a load of regular Ashigaru units. Pretty decent. So an okay force, not enough to actually deal with the Shimazu in the area, but it's going to keep them busy, annoy them, and perhaps defeat a couple of their units in the long run. We'll see what those rebels can do. Now really I need to move my missionary to go and start a rebellion like that in a province that doesn't have a garrison, so that's why I'm moving them up towards northern Hyuga there, where we should be able to get that going. It was your idea to end the alliance in the first place. In fact, you insisted upon it, didn't you? And that spirit remains. We are not allies, Lord Otomo. However, I am asking you to declare it as a lie, because that is what the people want. The people? Then why is it a daimyo came to see me today, and not they? Don't be coy! It's the Christians. After you let them in, they've been turning up everywhere. I investigated the matter, and they do seem to be not entirely without merit. Oh, you're a convert now. Welcome aboard. Don't take it too seriously, though. As you say, Lord, I am here because the Christians in my domain want our houses to be allies. It need only be a jest if you wish. That will be enough. Do it for them. And for the people of my fiefs, whom you are very kindly watching over for me. Tanegashima is going to be pretty sneaky and annoying, taking its trade ship, dodging my own ship in the area, and coming in to blockade the port at Nagasaki. That's going to prevent us getting a load of income from the trade there. Very inconvenient. However, the medium bune that it dodged to get there can now just chase after it and take it down super easily. So that's all of Tanegashima's naval power destroyed. I think they still have ships in their own ports, but they're under blockade right now. Now, since we have got an alliance with Shimazu, I thought we might actually just move out and take out Tanegashima, go and defeat them so the war ends, and quickly come back before anything happens on the mainland. It shouldn't take too long. And thanks to the recruitment of a new Christian missionary, we can get public order in Satsuma just about good enough that things will cool off once we're gone. It reminded me also to check on North Hyuga, where, as I had hoped, there's nothing in the garrison, so we're going to go ahead with the rebellion plan here, try and start a Christian rebellion, and then Yoshishige can take his army to take the province if the rebels manage to take it. So Yoshiaki needs to move out. We're going to bring Uno and part of the fleet back to ferry him down south towards Tanegashima after sending a couple of trade ships to bolster our newly captured trade resource point. Now, in the end turn sequence, the Waco pirates are making a nuisance of themselves once again, coming in to attack our node up at Goto Islands. And I think I have the same approximate fleet that actually won against them last time, but for whatever reason the balance bar's not very even this time. I'm going to run away. I think that balance bar is more representative of how that fight would actually go, considering how our ships are inferior to theirs, with the exception of our medium bune. So we're running away, having to run away 3 separate fleets inconveniently, and facing the big problem in Total War games, which is that you can't choose where to retreat to, and they all retreat to very bad locations. The Shimazu break their alliance with us right after we made it, so that's annoying. Hopefully that won't be a sign they're about to betray us, because I have already committed myself to going to take Tanegashima right now. I gathered our ships back together after they suffered loads of oceanic attrition out there, thanks to that annoying retreat that I mentioned, and now need to decide what to do with them. I need to kind of just hide. I'm going to keep them up north, just out of the attrition zone, away from the pirates for now, because we'll need to build up more ships to take down the pirate fleet. But before any of that, I wanted to just come and set Tanegashima's castle under siege, but in fact, they sallied to intercept us as we land. I didn't actually know you could do this in Shogun 2. It's a mechanic from Empire and Napoleon, as I recall, that I thought was taken out, but apparently it can still happen sometimes. This means we're going to be forced to fight them right away. A nice quick decisive battle then, which we'll get into next time. The draw of Christianity should have been apparent to the lords of the land. The promise of salvation and a perfect afterlife beyond what they had currently was just what the struggling peasant class of a war-torn society needed. The extreme speed at which southern Bungo had converted upon their lord's orders was clear evidence that the Europeans were right to believe that sending missionaries to such a distant land could be worthwhile. If they missed that, the fact that peasant and samurai alike were beginning to take up arms for the right to practice their new religion would have made things easy to understand. Christianity was here to stay, and for much of Kyushu it was a real force worth fighting and dying for. As the leader of Christian Japan, Otomo Yoshiaki found that his harsh reputation in the noble spheres was not replicated among the masses. He was a servant of the Lord, and they were servants of him. The Europeans then had not only given Yoshiaki new tools to win wars, but a new way to enforce the hierarchy of society when the wars were won. So that is all for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you very much to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making this episode happen. We'll continue our missionary antics, much to the chagrin of the Shimazu clan and our gain, in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.